Rotarians and guests, welcome to the August 5th meeting of the Rotary Club of York. We are the 22nd largest Rotary Club in the world. Kicking off our lineup today are not one, but two past district governors, Dick Brown and the newly minted Patty Rooney. Dick will lead us in our song and the pledge, and Patty will deliver our invocation. Dick.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes in liberating strife, who more than self their country love, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and everything divine.
Let us join together
in the pledge. And join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry for forgetting about the pledge. Let us pray. Gracious and almighty God, we give you thanks this day for all the graces and blessings you bestow upon us. We give you thanks for this time together and for the opportunity to serve others through our Rotary Club. Strengthen us daily to give and share more of ourselves, our time and our possessions, so that those who have greater needs will find a gift through our giving. Under your guidance, may our efforts strengthen this community so that it becomes a place where all live and prosper in peace and unity. We thank you for our speaker today as she shares with us the importance of art and leisure in our lives, the value that they bring in strengthening our communities, and the joy they offer to those who share it with others. We thank you also for the fellowship we share in this club, and for the community in which we are privileged to live and work, and for the ability always to serve others above ourselves. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Brother Brown and Brother Rooney. We do have two announcements for you today. As always, these meetings and our speakers are a great way to stay connected, especially in these times, and a great benefit for our members. And as you can imagine, it's challenging to book our speakers, especially when we don't yet have a time as to when we will be back together in person at the country club. So thank you for sharing all of your great suggestions for speakers with our program committee chair and past president, Mike Summers. We have an interesting announcement. This is from our friends at the Rotary Club of Memphis. They are hosting an interview of Marlo Thomas and Phil Donahue. Apparently they wrote a new book, and the book is called What Makes a Marriage Last? 40 celebrated couples share with us the secrets to a happy marriage. Bert will place information in our August announcer how you can obtain more details about this Zoom meeting. And up next, we have an important announcement from Dan May on our fundraising event next month. Dan.
Okay, Dan, we're bringing you on with your audio. All right, we're gonna bring Dan back after the next announcement, Ann, okay?
Okay, yeah, thanks for juggling all that, Courtney. I appreciate that. So our speaker for today is doing double duty. We would like to ask Kelley Gibson to come to the virtual podium for a charitable grant announcement. Kelley.
Thank you. So our charitable grants have been going for 20 years, and we have been able to give almost $500,000 out to organizations in our community that support our children. And that's thanks to the legacy givers of our club. If you're interested in leaving a legacy gift to the Rotary, please contact Bert to find out more. But today we're going to hear from NENA, which is the Northeast Neighborhood Association. They received a grant in the 2019-2020 cycle to address food insecurity and healthy eating education for their neighborhood.
Coming right up.
Hi, this is Darlene Leonard from the Northeast Neighborhood Association. Just talking a little bit about how we were able to use the grant money that we received from Rotary Club. And thank you so much for the support of our organization. There were 4 major areas in which we partnered with the community and with the residents of our area to provide some exciting programming. The first one was our Vacation Bible School in conjunction with a Nutrition Links class. So the Vacation Bible School was held in June. We've been doing this for 15 plus years, and we gathered children from the neighborhood to participate in the Vacation Bible School. And for the past few years, we've been also gathering their parents who participate in a Nutrition Links class during the same time that the children are doing the Bible School. So we had that class at the Steel Meadow York City campus. The children were in the auditorium for the Vacation Bible School, and the parents were in a classroom learning about food preparation, healthy food choices. And at the end of that class, we were able to give $50 vouchers to each of the participants for the York County Food Bank. So not only did they get $50 in food vouchers, but they were able to leverage that food to be able to provide food that was very, very affordable because it was coming from the York County Food Bank. We also had a second Nutrition Links class, and that was in partnership with Penn State, Nutrition Links, York Fresh Food Farms, and the York Rescue Mission. And that was a 4-day class as well. Participants came in, learned the same things about the food structure, healthy food, all the things that they're going to need to be able to provide fresh food and vegetables in an area that they're benefiting their family. That second class, we were actually able to use some of that funding for the supplies. They were healthy meals that the parents were getting, but York Fresh Food Farms would bring over the vegetables that they harvested from their gardens, and I would go to the local grocery stores to get the other additional items. We got spices, we got fresh fruit and vegetables, we got pasta. Everything that we received though for that grant, it was healthy eating, so that the participants were learning how to prepare healthy meals. A second way that we were able to use that funding was in conjunction with York Fresh Food Farms. They have their mobile van, and we actually spent $1,000 to purchase $5 vouchers to use specifically at the mobile van. So on the day that they began their van, I was there with the vouchers, giving them out to people that didn't have money to buy the food themselves. And we're continuing to give them out. There are 2 stops within the York City, within the Northeast Neighborhood Association, but I've also gone to other stops where they said people come sometimes and show up and don't have the money for it. So that was a very exciting to be able to be there at the van handing out those vouchers, and people were very appreciative of it. One of the other areas that we were able to use the funding is that during COVID, there were some meat shortages in the area, and the places that we would normally get our meats from didn't always have a variety of meats. So I was able to partner with the Cracker Barrel restaurant and purchase food at wholesale prices so that I could buy food from them and bring it and distribute it out in meat bundles at our food pantry. It was very interesting because people came and they were getting the food from here that they weren't getting at any other of the food pantries. We would have fresh fish, ground beef patties, turkey patties, and bone-in chicken, but that we were able to distribute at each of our distributions. The last place that we were able to utilize that funding was that during our weekly food distributions, which are Monday mornings and Wednesday evenings, I would go shopping at local grocery stores so that we could provide fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. So it's been especially enlightening during the summer months that we were able to have strawberries and peaches and cherries and watermelon and pineapples. One of the biggest items that people like to have is pineapples. So on the days of our distribution, I go out shopping at the grocery store, come back, and we set up our cart with fresh fruits and fresh vegetables so that people actually can come and not just get the canned goods and the pasta that they get, that they would normally get at our food pantry. They would get a lot of fresh merchandise. So thank you once again for your support. We look forward to continually working with you.
Okay, Anne, thank you very much, Kelley. Wonderful announcement. And Anne, I do have Dan with us. He is back here, and I'm going to share his face with everybody in 1 second. Dan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to provide a quick update from the fundraising committee. As a reminder, the annual fundraising event is scheduled and still on for Monday, September 14th at the Country Club of York. We're looking forward to a wonderful day, and just in case the day is not wonderful in terms of weather, please mark your calendars for Monday, October 5th as the rain date. So if you have not yet heard from a committee member, someone will be reaching out in regard to a sponsorship, and we ask that you kindly consider, as we have 4 projects that we are supporting this year: the York City Little League, which has been a long-term commitment of the club, and then the Kiwanis Lake Restoration Project, the Bearcat Interact Club, and Child Care Scholarships. As last year, the activities will include golf, tennis, croquet, and cornhole. And I would encourage you that if you're like me and golf is more stressful than it is enjoyable, please show up for some stress-free cornhole where you don't even need to put your beer down to participate. So, look forward to seeing lots of faces. As another reminder, the brochure is on the club's Facebook page. I encourage you to check it out. If anyone is interested in a sponsorship, please reach out to Bert. If you have any other questions, myself or any other committee member would be willing to help. And that's all that I have in terms of an update, and I look forward to seeing many of you on September 14th.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you to Dan and Kelley for the work of both of your committees. Obviously, this fundraiser is very important to our club, and it was apparent from the Northeast Neighborhood Association that our charitable grants are really being leveraged and creating partnerships in the community. So that's great work from both of those reports, and thank you to the efforts of everyone. Hope you have September 14th on your calendar to participate in our fundraiser in whichever way you're able to, and we hope it will be great weather, Dan. You won't have to postpone it to the 5th, and I hope to have a good turnout for that as well. Next up is our poll question, and Rotarian Phil Woods had been an overachiever, serving us all above self, and he had provided 2 polls for us last year for our Major League Baseball. So this is apropos as we're gearing up for our fundraiser to help out Little League. And the question is, outside of the USA, which country has been represented the most in the Little League World Series Championship? And you can select from Japan, Mexico, South Korea, or Taiwan. And Courtney will be on to give us the results.
Great, thank you, Anne. I'm gonna give everybody about 20 more seconds here. Looks like we've had about 55 responses so far. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, and I'm closing the poll. So the answer, and what the answer was, which the majority of our club had voted that the top answer was Japan, followed up with Taiwan, but actually the answer is Taiwan, and Japan is in second. So our club members were very close, just a little bit reversed there, but they were on the right track, Anne.
Thank you, Courtney. They really threw us for a curveball there, but we were in the ballpark on that one. Okay, I'll stop now. Back up to the virtual podium is fellow Rotarian Kelley Gibson. And many of us are familiar with Kelley for her tenure of almost 7 years at the Cultural Alliance of York County, where she served as president for just shy of the past 2 years. And that was since the retirement of former fellow Rotarian Marianne Winkleman and her predecessor. But before leading the Cultural Alliance, she served as Director of Communications and Engagement at the organization. Kelley's career spans positions at IM Wave, Inside Out Creative, York Arts Gallery, and she began at Fulton Bank. Kelley has deep ties with York College as she earned her degree there, and she has been teaching Spartan students for the past 12 years as an adjunct professor. Kelley is from New Jersey, and during the pandemic, she has been juggling the education and entertainment of her 2 daughters, ages 12 and 10. She is training for a triathlon, and that has given her really something good to focus on during the pandemic. This would have been her first triathlon, but it has been rescheduled. And next year, Kelley will be competing in the Iron Girl Triathlon in Wisconsin. The pandemic has impacted us. Go Kelley! The pandemic has impacted all of us. It's been traumatic and disruptive, and especially for many organizations and industries in our community. And Kelley will share with us how it has impacted the arts and culture. Many of you may have seen Kelley's op-ed that was in the Sunday News. Kelley will lead us in Creativity in Crisis, the Uncertain Future of Arts and Culture in York. Please welcome Kelley Gibson.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that fantastic introduction. I am a Jersey girl, but my heart is here in New York, and I'm excited to share with you some findings and research that we've had, and a quick shout out to Marianne Winkleman, who I know is watching today, and all of those friends of mine that are joining us today. So thank you. So first up, the Cultural Alliance of York County is South Central Pennsylvania's only United Arts Fund. And since our founding 20 years ago, we've invested more than $10.4 million into cultural organizations and artists that bring arts and culture to life for thousands of York County residents. And we have 3 distinct roles for the Cultural Alliance. We're an advocate at government levels and in business and in all different ways to advocate for our arts and culture and arts and education partners. We convene those partners to share best practices, especially now during this time. It was very, very important for us to join forces and really talk about ways to innovate programming and be able to continue to serve our community. And we're a steward. We equitably raise and efficiently grant out dollars for operations, the hardest money that our organizations and artists have to get, especially now. So those are our 3 roles, and we'll be going forward telling you about more of that. So where the research comes from, we have some national surveys that were done by the Americans for the Arts and Culture track, as well as Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. We also have done local surveys. So that's what you're seeing on your screen right now. There was over 16,000 organizations, 501 were in Pennsylvania and 24 in New York that are part of this research. Over 19,000 artists, again, 576 of them reside in Pennsylvania and 57 in New York. And audience members across the country, both who are already art supporters and those who are not traditionally art supporters, 124,000 of those across the country. So that's been very, very insightful. So the arts and culture really was, it's an older saying, canary in the coal mine, sort of the bellwether that was foretelling of what the future ripple effect of the pandemic was going to be. When in February, the US declared it as a public health emergency, many large-scale events across the country and across the world and flight restrictions really began hurting local artists in our community. I think a lot of us don't really know that there's a lot of very big performers who live here in New York, not only musical performers, but artists who travel all over. And those cancellations started rippling through our community very quickly. Production companies that are based in New York had large-scale concerts start to cancel. So already the economic impact was hitting before the shutdown in March. And then once that shutdown happened, events and fundraisers, which are a lifeline for many of our organizations, and not just arts organizations, began to get canceled or postponed. Mass refunds began to be issued right when an organization was already uncertain financially, and that really reduced a lot of operational cash. And then what I'll talk about a little more is a lot of innovation started to happen. Arts and culture organizations really pivoted and started to do some innovative programming to continue to be in touch with our community. As we entered the green phase, green did not mean go for the majority of our arts and culture organizations. Because of the restriction on the amount of people that could gather, most arts groups could not still provide the programming they had been providing in the past. And 95% of our artists and arts organizations are projecting significant financial losses into late 2021. As our pandemic stays and as our cases go up, as July when we had to modify some of those green phases, it's just pushing that line of what reopening could possibly be just further down the road for arts and culture organizations in our community. So where has funding been coming from? I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide here. So for the Cultural Alliance, as our arts community started to shut down, we, being an organization that raises dollars and then regrants them in the following year, so from our 2019 campaign and our investors and donors, we were able to ramp up very quickly in March. We started giving online applications, started opening. We began funding organizations with emergency grants, as well as artist relief grants. We were able to fund 50 artists and help put back some of the income that they were suffering losses from all over our county, artists based in Dillsburg, artists based in Southern York County, and everywhere in between. So we were really able to be very responsive during the crisis. And as you can see, $359,000 from March to June has been distributed to our arts community through the Cultural Alliance, and that is thanks to our donors. I want to talk a little bit about what federal dollars and state dollars have been doing in our community. So it was announced as part of the CARES Act that $75 million would go directly to arts organizations across the country. But the mechanism that was used was the National Endowment for the Arts, which is the national funding arm for the government. The challenge with that is you had to have been in their system and had been funded anytime over the past 4 years in order to qualify to apply for $50,000 operational grants. That is only qualifying 2 organizations in our community that were able to even start that process. So a majority of the dollars that the NEA was given, that $75 million, about 75% of it was these $50,000 grants. But again, because it was limited to someone who had already received funding in the past through their system, that really shrunk down the window of organizations to take advantage of that opportunity. 25% of those funds were given to re-granting organizations. And in our community, that's the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. So 5 other organizations were able to access that funding, but it was a $1,900 grant, not a $50,000 grant. So that's how much money from that $75 million we actually saw in York County to benefit our arts groups. In the state level, there was, there was $20 million that was put together through the state for a cultural preservation grant program. And that was administered by the Department of Community and Economic Development. The challenge with that grant was that you had to have been funded by the DCED in order to qualify, not by the Pennsylvania Council. That's very rare for our community. Only certain organizations are able to get that. And in York, that meant 2. Only 2 could possibly qualify to apply for any of that $20 million. Now we've just received word that through the county and some of the CARES Act funding that was given to the County of York, there is going to be a portal opening for grants for nonprofits and for-profit businesses. $4 million is going towards the nonprofit organizations, but the priority will be on food security, childcare, and rapid reemployment. So we're not sure how much of those dollars arts and culture organizations will be able to apply for and get, because it will be prioritized, and it is $4 million sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of organizations that will be applying for those funds. So we're just not sure how much of those dollars will be able to get into the hands of arts and culture organizations. I am very proud of the work that our cultural organizations have done and our artists have done to pivot so quickly from their traditional programming to be able to really bring the much needed comfort and creativity and just joy that arts and culture can give us in this very unstable time. What you're seeing here are some examples. The York Symphony Orchestra has a great offstage program that you can access for free online. The York County History Center has done an amazing job of putting out some really amazing content online and virtual tours of their museums. Brady York dance class pivoted so quickly to having ballet, contemporary, all of their dance online. They've recently had their annual show where all the children get to dance, and they did it staggered and outside. And you could tell that the kids and families really, really needed that time. You're also seeing on your screen York Art Association, who started doing online Zoom classes and drawing. This particular one about animals and food was one of my daughter's favorites. So they're getting really creative. That's what they do. I like to talk about artists and arts organizations having superpowers. They can change on a dime, and they really have done that for our community. There's a lot of very, very cool content out there, and it's free. Majority of this online content, though it costs these organizations money and resources to create it, they have offered most of it for free for all of us to access. So what we're hearing from audience, what are the needs and expectations of our audiences in this time? You can see some quotes there from the surveys. What's really surprising is there's many people who have been accessing online creative content, classes, virtual museum tours, and they've never been to the place that they're accessing physically before. So they may be doing a new tour virtually of a place they've either felt they weren't able to get to, couldn't afford to get to, or just didn't have the ability to get to. So it's become very valuable, and people have expressed to us that they really want to see it continue even after we are in a new normal after this pandemic passes. And they also really have some expectations about how they want cultural organizations to keep them connected. Number one is they want to laugh and relax. People want a little bit of escapism in this time. It's also a great way for them to stay connected to each other. So there's been some expectations that we know, and this is going to help our arts organizations understand the needs of their audience now more than ever, and what really is going to bring them joy. So respondents to the surveys talked about what's it going to take for them to feel comfortable once again attending and enjoying arts and culture. Here's the good news. 6 of the top 8 measures are within an organization's control, though they do add additional cost and resources to do them. So as you can see, 53% increased cleaning, reduced admission levels is 46%, enforcement of masks for both visitors and staff, health screenings. But really the most impactful is going to be the external measures that they cannot control, which is 50% of a vaccine becoming available and 41% announcement from the government that it's safe to return. So though the 6 out of 8 is good odds, it's really those external measures that are going to make the difference for these organizations to fully come back to previous pandemic programming. Past findings build a foothold for the future. So this is really just a slide as a placeholder. It's kind of just a general step back looking at recessions and how things changed right before a recession and right after. And we have been through hard times before as arts and culture communities. What we find is that efforts to fund these organizations during the crisis, they drop. Support does drop for organizations, but those who stay in contact with their communities, those who really innovate and work to continue to be relevant, those bounce back and usually bounce back for the better. This pandemic is unlike anything else we've seen before, so that's really hard to compare. But if any of this is a possible way to think about what's going to happen in the future, we really need to continue to be in contact with our donors and supporters in our community and really do our best to ensure that we're here for them so that when we are fully able to turn things back on, people will be there in the audience to support it. And the past has shown us that that's what happens. So we're hoping that that gives us a little bit of a window into what could be our future too. So the long-term recovery plan and what I want to leave everyone with is it's not a short-term situation for arts and culture in our community. It's a long-term. 18 months is going to be a very critical metric for this community. So really the plan is to continue to advocate. What really these organizations need is unrestricted operating support. They need to be able to have the funding and resources to change their programming to meet needs now, but also hang on until they can really completely reopen and get back to providing in-person, services and programming the way that our community wants them to. Voices are really important. Can't be just mine. I really need everyone to think about if this is important to you, if education if that involves arts for your children is important to you, if having these meaningful experiences is important to you, if the economic impact of these cultural institutions in the community is important to you, then in rounds of funding that come out, we need to talk about how those funds are equitably distributed. The mechanisms for the state and the federal funding showed that only certain organizations could qualify, and more funding will be coming. So we need your voices with your legislators and businesses to say, look, this matters, it's important, and we need to get it distributed in a way that organizations can take advantage of it, of all different sizes. And if you are passionate about arts organizations, please continue that. Please let them know that you're here. They are waiting for your support. So if you normally buy a ticket to a certain concert or an event, please still buy that ticket knowing you're not going. Every little bit helps. The arts organizations, as I said, have done a fantastic job of pivoting and trying to get programming out to a wider audience, and they want to be here for you. So hopefully we can all be here for them. We are going to work this year to raise, again, we raise dollars in one year that we give out in the next, and 2021 will be a critical time. As we've seen in these findings, 2021 is the soonest that these organizations can really fully reopen and serve our community. So they're going to need those operational dollars more than ever before. Our goal at the Cultural Alliance is to fund more organizations and artists than we have this year, and we're going to ramp up our investment in the community because that's what we were created to do, and we're really proud to do it. So thank you to anyone and everyone who supports the arts. And now I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Kelley. First of all, you have greetings from past President Brian Tate. He's on vacation in Rehoboth at the beach. So Brian would like to know, and I think you did give us some ideas on this, but what's the greatest way that Yorkers can ensure our cultural organizations can survive? Can we increase attendance? We can't increase attendance currently, is only money needed. How can we volunteer? Can we solicit our friends? You mentioned legislators reaching out. What's the best ways that we can help?
Yeah, I think voice and funds are the number one and number two ways to help. Vocalizing your support is very important with your for schools, especially. We did see that there is going to be the elimination of music programming in the K through 8 grades in New York City School District. That's going to really impact the education, all around education of those students. And we want to make sure that it's important, and we want to make sure that you're preserving that in your own school district. So make sure that your voice is heard there, as well as with our local and state legislature. The next time funding is talked about for arts and culture, how is it structured? We can be the advocates to educate, to ensure that that's seen as important. And every little bit of support helps. A lot of times folks will say, well, I don't really have that much to give. Every dollar given to an arts and culture organization, they turn that into $7 of economic impact. So it's a really, really powerful investment. So So giving to those organizations directly, as I said, becoming members in this time is really critically important. And you know, supporting the investment in arts is the best way right now to be impactful.
Thank you, Kelley. Has another question for you to consider. Has the York County arts community benefited at all from the PPP, which we know is the Payroll Protection Program?
Yes, many of our organizations applied for and received PPP. The challenge with PPP, and I'm sure many of the business folks in our Rotary had the same experience, several organizations had to lay off staff in order to reserve funds. So PPP was specifically made for bringing staff on. So for some of our organizations, they were not able to take advantage of it, but many organizations in the community did benefit from PPP. And it was a program that luckily was for nonprofits as well as for-profits. So that has helped. But again, those funds are only to get a couple of months down the road. And as we've seen, and many others who have benefited from PPP, right about now is when those funds are depleted and gone.
Thank you, Kelley. Another question for you to ponder. People tend to think technology offerings, you know, reaching out to artists and artists providing their product via technology are less expensive than in-person options. Can you shed some light on this?
Sure. So especially when it comes to school-age children, a great example of this is Greater York Dance, whose dance classes all went online. Though there are some free options out there, as we all know, who've had to set up Zoom accounts and different GoToWebinar accounts, what they needed to have was a secure space for these under 18 students to perform in together virtually. That isn't free. It can be very expensive. The platforms can be $1,000 to $10,000 in order to do it well and ensure that everyone can access it. The other challenge with technology is we also serve students in rural areas of our county that don't have access to technology the same way that some of us may take for granted. So really, it's thinking about hybrid approaches. Is there possibilities of doing distanced outdoor arts and culture activities in classes, or having kits, you know, at-home kits put together, such as Creative York has put together some art kits and distributed that to school-aged kids. So is there a way to have something put together at home, but not as, you know, reliant on technology that may not be accessible for everyone? So our cultural community is really thinking these questions through. And so resource-wise, it could be additional supplies you need to provide now to kids at their homes rather than having them come to your center. Or also setting up technology that is safe and, you know, secure for these kids. That can be expensive.
Thank you, Kelley. We hope to, at some point in the future, as you know, be returning our club meetings back downtown to the Yorktown. So a question for you is, how is the York arts community and arts inclusion collaborating and working with the Yorktown Hotel Project?
Oh, so that's a great question. Thank you for that. You know, I think what's been really exciting about the Yorktown is it had a proactive effort to reach out to local artists from the start. A lot of times when redevelopment projects happen, arts and culture is thought of once everything's done. What's been really exciting about the Yorktown project is artists were able to access drawings and tours to think about specific installations for telling the story of York through artistic means from the very beginning of the project. And that has resulted in 14 artists having site-specific installation pieces as created specifically for the Yorktown that will really help tell our community's unique story, as well as there will be featured artwork that's already been created later in the project. So it's really going to change that feeling when you walk into the Yorktown. And it's been really exciting to see artists in our community get recognized and have their pieces inside the hotel. I can't wait for everyone to be able to walk through it. It's been great, and I really thank Kim Hogeman from the York County Economic Alliance, who's done an amazing job reaching out and working with our local artists.
Well, that certainly whets our appetite for returning back downtown even more, Kelley. Thank you. Kelley, in your comments, you had mentioned the two sources of funding, one that significant sources, but the challenges were you, in one case, had to have approval from the NEA, in the other case, you had to have been working with DCED. And in each instance, there were only two organizations that could apply for those funds. Were those the same two organizations, or were there four different organizations that were able to apply?
There was some overlap. One organization was able to apply for both, so it was really three organizations total.
And
yes.
have they been successful, or is that yet to remain to be seen if they secured the funding?
The National Endowment for the Arts published there, so their grants were done and awarded. Only two possible organizations could qualify for the state funding, but that hasn't closed yet. So it's unknown if they will actually receive them, but they qualify at least. So for the National Endowment for the Arts, because you have to go through the government systems, their award management systems, it takes months to qualify your organization, even to receive funds before you ever apply. So that is why that was so challenging for organizations. The National Endowment for the Humanities that received dollars, theirs was open and competitive, and I want to congratulate the York County Library System. They received funding from the National Endowment for Humanities, as well as the York County History Center received a grant to be able to do the virtual platform and provide the programming that you see on their site. So when it's an open and competitive process, it really allows organizations to have a better shot at receiving those funds. But really what it boils down to is there needs to be a more equitable process, and there needs to be more direct grant opportunities for arts and culture organizations. They're just not the same as every nonprofit out there, and it's something that we're really starting to see happen. As more funding comes out, it's going to be critical that dollars are set aside in a way that organizations at the smaller levels have a chance to access it, or take advantage of the organizations that exist. The Pennsylvania Council on the Arts, if they had received the larger share of those dollars, instead of $1,900, those organizations could have received significant funding. There were more on that side of the re-grant side. So there's organizations out there like ours. We're a pass-through for Pennsylvania funds, and our job is to get those funds out as far as we can in our county. If we were able to take some of those dollars and grant them out, you can see how fast we can operate. So I think that's something we need to think about. What systems are in place and how do we take advantage of them to the best of the abilities and get funding out much faster.
Excellent, Kelley. One more question for you. Are cultural venues pre-booking private events, and are they also selling memberships? Are they pre-selling memberships?
Yes, they are selling memberships, depending on the cultural venue. What we call a presenting organization, and that would be your Appel Center and your Eichelberger Performing Arts Center, Pulo Performing Arts Center. Those venues are booking shows that are touring, national shows. The challenge is those tours are getting canceled. So for private events, it's, again, still with the limit of 25 people in person. It doesn't go by size of venue. It's a flat number, 25, no more than 25 in an indoor event. That really, really limits any possibility of doing indoor events in any of our cultural institutions. When it was 250, there was a little more wiggle room there. But at this point, it's the safety of our community that's really important to our cultural institutions. So they are heightening all of their safety protocols, but with a 25-person limit, it really, really hampers even small classes to be able to take place indoors in any of the venues. But they are all, again, thinking outside the box. You can see that the Appel Center's partnered with the Revs and doing movies outside of the Rev Stadium. They're starting to stream things virtually from the Appel Center. And so we're really trying everything that we can to help leverage the programming we know everybody wants, but doing it in a safe way. And until we get our handle around the pandemic and have some of those restrictions be able to be loosened safely, it's gonna be a while before we're all sitting in seats and watching a show on a stage.
Yeah, it's interesting when when you think about your industry, many of your artists, musicians are
Mhm.
connected with restaurants, Friday evenings,
Yes.
Saturday evenings. So that's certainly impacting them as well. And I'm sure
Yeah.
they're waiting to see the restrictions lifted so that they're in the head count for the servers and also the patrons of the restaurant as well.
Right. And if you think about it, most of their day jobs are in the service industry. So not only is their practice compromised, but their job that they rely on for steady income is also compromised.
Mhm. Okay, Kelley, thank you so much for joining our club and presenting today. We appreciate your leadership at the Cultural Alliance, and thank you very much for stabilizing the community as best you can during these challenging times. And as you know, our club has now a new tradition that Di Hershey started, and that is, instead of giving you a Rotary tchotchke to thank you, we will like to ask you, Kelley, if you would sign your name into a book plate. And the book is called Play Day School Day, and that will be presented, as well as all the other books this month, to the YWCA of York and York County. So thank you very much, Kelley.
Thank you.
So Rotarians, our speaker next week is the president of the United Way of Pennsylvania. Kristen Rotz will inform us about the ALICE project, which stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. Last June, United Way of Pennsylvania launched this project, giving every community in the state a data set to explain how many people are going to work but struggling to make ends meet. These are our neighbors who are working but living paycheck to paycheck. Those who live below the ALICE stability threshold are our friends and neighbors who live one emergency away from extreme vulnerability. We hope that you join us next week. And I also hope that you enjoy this closing song on the Rotary Soundstage. It's called Monsters by Eric Church. And we have a majority of gents in our club, and it's really touching lyrics about a father and son relationship. So hope you all have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Thank you for your service above self.